All right, everyone. The lame establishment is really concerned about Trump's Fed pick. His idea of who should run the Fed apparently at one point backed a gold standard. Now, I've got my own views on that. I do not back a gold standard or a silver standard, but I'll get into why in a moment. But CNN was trying to attack Stephen Moore with one of his comments, and they actually made him look cool, which is that they said that Stephen Moore said, well, capitalism is more important than democracy. What's wrong with that statement? We're not a democracy and never have been. Now, here's the problem. When people think of the term democracy, they think like, well, America's a democracy or something. Okay, in the technical sense, we are a democracy. We're a democratic republic. The democratic ideals, the by the people, for the people sort of thing, yes, that's a democratic ideal. But we're not a direct democracy. And unfortunately, a lot of people have construed the two together, think that direct democracy is a good thing or what we're supposed to be, and they want to forsake the idea of even being a republic. They want like a national, sort of popular vote system for election, which is another step closer to a direct democratic system. It's a devolution away from the sort of enlightened ideals of governance that we really should be operating under. The idea was that, yes, in some cases, people are fucking morons, and there does need to be a stopgap measure to prevent them from breaking their own toys and then regretting it later. Believe it or not, yes, and I know that sounds slightly authoritarian, but I mean, come on. And the government's corrupt too, like they got enough problems. That's why we need more limitations on them, but capitalism is wonderful. It's nice to think about the Fed being run by someone who doesn't say, well, capitalism bad, socialism good. We need more, voodoo economics, aka we need higher taxes for no apparent reason. If we just tax people more, we'll have more money to give to the poor, and everything will work out. It's like the most basic, like fucking third grade view of economics. Like, wow, why doesn't everyone just print more money? That's sort of like the sort of suggestion you'd hear from a kindergarten class. It's very rudimentary. It's very, it's uncivilized, basically, when you think about it. It doesn't work. It's never worked in the history of mankind, but capitalism has. Dude, the United States, for its first, 150 years, was an almost totally unbridled capitalistic system. Look at the progress that happened. With virtually no government intervention whatsoever, people built the infrastructure that became the United States, and in some cases, it was way better than what the government built later. The government justified the mass expansion of interventionism and socialism and government pet projects and pork barrel politics. All of this is prefaced on the Cold War. That's really during the era of the Second World War. FDR introduces the fully modern military-industrial structure, oddly enough paired with ideals from Germany at the time. That gets ushered in. In order to maintain that, because of their realization that it could spur on actual industrial growth and become self-replicating, they needed to have excuses, and so they created the non-stop war footing, which is also prefaced on never-ending wars for oil control in the Middle East, among other things. You watch, it's going to morph. I can't remember which author said that eventually Central Asia would become a main battleground because of minerals and things like that as green energy takes off. I can see that certain raw resources causing that to happen. But anyway, it's nice to think about the Fed being run by somebody who understands that socialism is not a virtue, democracy is not what we're founded on, we're founded as a republic, and who's not afraid to applaud capitalism and say, look, what do you expect me to say, dude? If you're going to have someone running the Fed, of all things, you want them to be a capitalist, you want them to understand economics. And if you're not a capitalist, you don't understand economics. No, socialism has never been a virtue, has never uplifted any group of people long term. Capitalism has. The structures of the Western world, in cases, you look at look at the olden days of feudal Europe or something. The high level of centrality and the abusiveness inherently of those forms of control over economics, trade policy and stuff held Europe back for centuries. People start coming here to get away from it, and all of a sudden they start dabbling with systems like, hey, why can't we just go out into the woods and fucking found a village and, fuck, the British style incorporation structures, and we're just going to govern ourselves. We'll have our own little local leadership and stuff. and stuff like that. Have you heard of the Pine Tree Rebellion? Look it up sometime and you'll have a funny look at history prior to the Revolutionary War. No, capitalism is great. It's great. I hope that he ends up being the head of the Fed. Now, of course, there will be a significant amount of pushback from the lamestream because it'll scare them. The idea that the Fed would be run by anything other than a socialist would scare them, certainly. Might break all of the socialistic toys and restore our system to a proper function. People's wages might go up. Oh, their purchasing power. Employees might be able to actually, like, be favored over the multinational corporations for hiring purposes. Oh, Jesus. They might start to demand better conditions. Oh, Jesus Christ. It'd be fucking terrible now, wouldn't it? People might be able to get ahead. Oh, we can't let the poor people get ahead. They'll have more leisure time to become educated and they'll stop being socialistic. That's what it basically boils down to. Fuck them. That's about all. Peace out.